ないようだから、実際の仕事の方に移るとしましょうか。ラムの仕事をバルスにも手伝ってもらうわ。
ここで俺の秘められた執事スキルが覚醒する展開。
今日のラムの仕事は前庭と庭園の手入れ、昼食の準備を手伝って、その後銀食器を磨き、寝台の布団拭き、洗濯と浴室の掃除、月に一度の屋敷全体のすす払い。
Look how cute he looks. Isn't he great? Wonderful. He's my friend for the video. Don't fall, I swear. That's cool.
Why is Japan obsessed with French maids? Disclaimer, I am not talking about Japan as a country or a political body. I'm more talking about the subculture of anime / light novel / manga fans that are more related to otakus. I really didn't need that. I just wanted to feel like I'm about to talk about something very controversial. Maid cafes will always profusely confuse and befuddle anyone who visits their happy mo atmosphere and their French maid clothing. Does anyone even know why the hell they exist? There isn't very much of a Western equivalence here. The only thing I can really think of is really Chinese restaurants, but at that point they don't really dress in Chinese traditional clothing. That's because Chinese clothing, Chinese traditions, Chinese cuisine, Chinese culture was introduced into the West through immigration and just people liking it. But the French didn't really immigrate to Japan for a better life. First, what are they like? Well, these maid cafes are described as, quote, one of the strangest things he or she had ever seen. The name maid cafe should be self-explanatory. Cafes with maids. But to what extent? Well, these maid cafes will be calling their customers master or mistress. Many accounts of maid cafe visits are generally flat of anything negative, or at least even these maids bickering at you. These maids are to act happy and sweet towards the customer, and following the culture of the more cute and more perception of maids by otakus. Some accounts of these maids will have even customers involved in conga lines or karaoke, which sounds pretty fun, honestly. I will tell you right now, walking into one will net different results based on who you are as a person. These things are not for everyone. More on that later. Let us get back to the question. Google search this question and you'll find nothing. You'll find a bunch of articles about how weird these things are. No one really specifies that it's French maids either, except for this one article. Are maid cafes that weird? To tourists, yeah, but to otakus, to businessmen, to normal people, it isn't. I attribute that to the location of these maid cafes. The Akihabara region of Tokyo is really for otakus, for businessmen, and for general public because it's really dense with electronics, it's dense with malls, it's really dense with business. According to the website Traveler, maid cafes started popping up in this region about the year 2000s and going beyond. It would make sense why these maid cafes would coexist with the word unexpected. But given a glance, it makes sense. Normal people would go there for business and electronics, the otakus would go there for electronics and their anime figures and their body pillows. And what do you do when you're tired? You go to a store and get fed, to an eatery or a cafe. Also, maid cafes are not the only quote-unquote theme of these cafes. Some cafes are butlers, some are trains. You get the point. However, it is an undeniable fact that maid cafes are more known. Why? We may have an answer in the form of tourism. 2 words, 13 letters, the Paris syndrome. Removed the. According to metropolisjapan.com, 20 tourists per year experience the syndrome, which is a condition that Paris literally makes you sick. Okay, that's not very fair, but it's really just the shift or the culture, the unexpectedness of what Paris is actually like in contrast to what these tourists actually think Paris will be like. Around 20 people out of the 1.1 million Japanese tourists that visit Paris will experience this Paris syndrome. But 1.1 million tourists? Really? We're getting somewhere, just stick with me. Why do so many Japanese people visit Paris? Now, I do not have solid citations on what I'm about to say. I can really give you Quora and Reddit links, which are terrible sources, but where they meet in the middle is pretty consistent. Government officials and the highly educated during and after the Meiji Restoration in the late 1860s were given a reason to visit European countries for their government and for their culture. The highly educated would be visiting and be encountering French art, and the governments would just be going around Europe and bragging about where they were, and that's where the case comes in. So finally, after the late 1960s, when the general public gets to fly on their own, after hearing about Europe and how interesting Paris is and what the heck a croissant is, these tourists would want to visit these places they've heard of but were never being able to visit. Again, to end this off, I'm just cross-referencing what I've read. And there you go. If the core idea is true, the obsession with France and Paris is a cultural one. So, maid cafes. Add some mo and some cuteness and otaku spice and a little bit of sexual tension, and you will be given a place that Western teens will be ashamed of, saying they visited and loved at the same time. Cultural dispersion is a beautiful thing, especially when it gets a boost from the higher class. In the grand scheme of things, maid cafes are what they are. They're just cafes with maids and a heavier emphasis on customer interaction. A lot of people who live around these cafes would act like they're cafes, like any normal one. People who look at these cafes like they're super weird are basically like the Japanese tourists who get the Paris syndrome, like they're weird or, get this, snicker or cringe at the idea of maid cafes. In conclusion, fascination in France is embedded with at least some part of Japanese culture, and put together with the services of a friendly and interactive cafe with a face that attracts otakus and weebs, it seems like there's something for everyone when it comes to these French maid cafes. Also, maid costumes are just hot, like come on, look at that.